The Bible says that different people put different emphasis on different days. One person considers one day more important than another. And let's be honest, when it comes to Mother's Day versus Father's Day, Mother's Day is way more important. And there are good and wholesome reasons for that. First of all, God, in the list of the big 10 commandments, says, honor your father and mother. Later it says, honor your father and mother in the Lord, so that it may go well with you all the days of your life. There is a blessing toward having a right opinion and a right perspective on your parents. Or maybe we need to say on parenthood as a whole, because whenever you elevate one day or one parent above another, you end up, for the people who find that awkward, maybe disenfranchising some who didn't know their mom very well. Not every mom is a godly woman. Not every child is able to appreciate the blessing of their parents, of their moms. And we recognize that the idea of honoring your parents as you get older is different than obeying your parents. As you become an adult, sometimes you have to do something that God has led you to do that your parents are not convinced is God's leading. Now, do you obey your parents or do you disobey them? And yet by disobeying them, honor them because you're following God. It's not easy. And being a mom is not easy. And I think that's something that we need to recognize. And one of the blessings that comes from having our own children is the way that it encourages us to have a little bit more grace and forgiveness to our own parents, as we realize that children didn't come with instruction manuals. They're hard. Part of what makes being a good mom difficult is that children are a mess. It's not just that they're messy, they're born broken, and they live up to that brokenness day after day after day. No matter how many times you tell them to clean their room, they're still not going to clean their room. And it's easy to get wrapped up in how broken our children are. It makes being a mom hard. But even worse than the children, those daggum husbands. Goodness! We're a mess. We're broken. And when our wives say, being a mom would be so much easier if you would just help out more, they're not wrong, but it's not the whole story, is it? We look at our culture as a whole, and we go, and being a good parent in our culture, there are so many vices, there are so many distractions, and our culture makes being a good mom difficult. But we have to get a little bit perspective. I'm not letting people off the hook. Yes, we husbands are a mess, but we're not irredeemable. That's God's job. And moms are also broken, but they're not irredeemable. The children are a mess, but they're not irredeemable. And God in His wisdom has put you and me in this time frame, and though there are challenges, to get a little perspective, we're not having to raise our children in a bomb shelter like, hey, where did my slide go? I must have bumped that button. Katerina Litvin. She lives in Ukraine. She's got to take her children and her mom into a bomb shelter on a regular basis. If you were mom in Israel, a siren would go up and you've got 2 minutes to get to the bomb shelter, because that is the amount of time that it takes a missile to get from the point where it is detected to landing in Israel. Being a mom in Israel or Ukraine has its challenges too. And yet, look at this family. I wish the picture came out better on this projector as it did on the screen. That's a happy mom there, all with their cans of soup, thumbs up, big smiles. And if you look back behind mom is her mom that she's also having to take care of in the bomb shelter. Sometimes a little perspective on the challenges that we face in our environment, in our times, in America, brings us back to the point that we go, all right, it could be worse. My husband is broken, but at least he's following Jesus. All right, my children are sinners, but we're in church where they can learn about Jesus. Redemption is taking place in the midst of us, and it makes us wonder that even in Western culture, is it so bad that it's just like being back in the Civil War and those times, or just like the Middle? Can you imagine what it was like to be a mom in the Middle Ages in Europe, where you hadn't even learned to tell your children to wash their hands before they eat, and you wondered why so many of them died? Things have been much worse, and yet we find ourselves asking, if things are that much better, why are so many women, so many moms still so unhappy? So unhappy that we say, with a chuckle, a wink, a nod, and an awareness that, well, there's part of that. We say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And we laugh, but it should be annoying. This is not an excuse. This is not the way it must be, but there is a sense in which mom, with who she is, flavors the entire environment of the family. And when she's miserable, that misery gets shared around. She says, well, it's just because there's so much stress. I'm trying to manage so many things that shouldn't be my job. Why should I be the one having to pick up after the children? Why should I be the one getting them after school? I've got so many things that cause me stress, and then there's this, and then there's that. Okay, I get it. And then there's so much just chaos in the world. Things are going on that I can't control, and I'm trying to control and manage things that I just can't do it all. And then things get out of control, and the house is a mess, and chaos is everywhere. Okay. And then, of course, there's the issue of things that I've got to worry about because nobody else is going to worry about them. The feeling of a loss of control, a loss that if I don't will them into happening the way they ought to happen, then nothing good is going to happen. But is that your responsibility? You see, it's not just that the children are broken, they are. It's not just the husbands are broken, they are. But mom is broken too. We are all in a situation where we're born into a world that wants us to be distracted, wants us to get wrapped up and become victims of the stress around us, the chaos that's happening, the worry that somebody's going to drop the ball and everything's going to spin out of control. Somebody's got to worry about all of those things, don't they? In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus had a lot to say about our overall perspective. He starts off with the Beatitudes saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the people whose attitudes reflect their awareness that God in heaven is in control, and though we are emotionally engaged with the world around us, it's not all our responsibility. God is in charge of managing and balancing things that we cannot." And so later in this same sermon, Jesus says things that I think are very helpful for all of us, but especially helpful because of the way women and moms are wired differently than men. And we'll talk about that different wiring for men on Father's Day, but this is Mother's Day. And this passage I thought was particularly helpful to moms, but again, Yeah, I need to say this before we read this, because we who have been brought up with a high degree of religious expectation hear whenever Jesus says, do not worry, do not do something, it becomes a law. I'm messed up because I keep worrying. That's not what he's saying. There's a different perspective. There is a way of walking and abiding in Christ that all of this better attitude, the blessedness, the happiness that can come to a woman because of being a mom flows naturally out of her relationship with God. That he's doing the work, therefore we don't have to. But even before I read this, realize that if you gravitate toward the do not do this and do not do that, and that is becoming a list of your failures, that's a wiring problem indicating our own brokenness more than what Jesus is trying to say. Let's read it together. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, before we get into the section on worry, let's just pause here and summarize the three things that he's already laid out. First of all, if you're looking to be happy, stuff is not the answer. If you're looking to be happy, how you see things, what you look upon affects your soul. It affects more than just the things around you. What you see and what you surround yourself with affects your soul. And thirdly, you cannot have divided priorities. Having a unified loyalty is incredibly important to being happy. These things, stuff, beauty, and, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and priorities or loyalties are the first three things he says. And now he's going to spend a lot of time talking about worry. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you? You have little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Again, don't fix on the do not worry. We'll get to that. The answer is not in avoiding the things that we're to avoid. The answer is fixing our attention on what we're supposed to be pursuing. It is not, if you avoid worry, you will seek the kingdom. No, it is seek the kingdom, and all these other things will take their place. And so, in that sense, where we used to say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, we can flip that coin over and say, but if mama is happy, then everyone else is blessed as well. A godly woman is a blessing not only to her husband, to her children, but to her congregation, to everyone around her, and in every community in which she is a part. She is a blessing if she can, first of all, get her loyalty to Jesus settled so that she seeks first the kingdom of God. Do we have a stray running loose here? Oh. That happens. So I want to land on three things that women, all of y'all, if I'm missing the mark on any of this, if any of this rubs you the wrong way, remember I am just a broken man trying to make sense of what it must be like to be a mom who follows Jesus. And I've asked several women to help me come up with three things because I'm a guy. If you say, give me 3 bullet points on what it means to be a godly man, provide, protect, lead. Easy, done. We can talk about it, but I've got my 3. I say to women, can you give me 3 categories, 3 bullet points? And it's a whole conversation. And I'm trying to find the one word that makes the most sense or the one phrase. And the first one is the one that causes the most conflict in discussion. The last one is the one that everybody agrees on. So we're going to start with the most stress-inducing topic first, so that by the time we get to the one we all agree with, you'll have already forgot what I said that bothered you to begin with. Okay? It's just a strategy. Going to be upfront with where I'm falling short on this. And the first comes from this idea of the equality or lack of equality between men and women. What is this role between a man and a woman that God said, I will create them male and female to bear my image? Well, that sounds like awful equality to me. But I'm going to make her to be his helper. Ooh, I don't like that. That doesn't sound equal at all. And it's a problem because our language doesn't have a good word. The Hebrew word for helper is ezer. The old King James tried to get a modified word by saying that it is his helpmate. Because we don't want to infer slave. That's bad. But helpmate doesn't really communicate in modern English very well. And so I've tried to say she is created to be his essential helper. Later in the book of Psalms, God says of his relationship to Israel that he is their ezer, their essential helper, to say that they cannot accomplish what they have been sent in the world to do without God's help. He is not less than them, in quite the opposite. I can say that in my experience in camping, my favorite job was being the camp ezer, not the camp geezer. That's entirely different, and I've been that too, but the camp ezer is the manager, the essential helper, the one who makes the whole thing come together and actually work. I love that role, especially when I've got a godly, good CEO that I can without hesitation say, my job is to make him look good. My job is to take his ideas of what the camp should be and make it happen. My job is to manage the counselors so that they make me look good, I make my boss look good, and together we make Christ look good. And I loved being the camp ezer. I will say it was really hard when I worked for a CEO that did not respect me, did not think my ideas were good, and every time I had a good idea, he'd go, bad idea. Why are you such an idiot? Don't you realize that? And then 2 months later, he'd say, you know what we should do? And he would present my very same idea as though he had come up with it. And I have to go, well, it is still a good idea, but it kind of stinks that I didn't get any credit for it. If there is no respect between a husband and wife, that does make being the easer really difficult. It is wise that Paul said, if you have not yet committed in marriage to someone, be sure to find someone with whom you can be equally yoked. Somebody who at the very least agrees that God is God and he is not. I've worked for guys who, though they claim to be Christians, did not have that clarity of who actually was God. Made it very difficult. But it did not make it impossible. Paul also says that if your situation means that you are with somebody who is not even a believer, you shouldn't be the reason that they leave. Follow Jesus. Honor the boss. Figure out how to make it happen. It is not essential. It's just good advice to find somebody with whom you are equally yoked. But even the best husband is broken. Even those, I've got my two elders right here. Have you guys got being a husband all figured out? Do you know how to do it all the time? Ralph does. Me, not so much. I'll talk to Ralph. Ron, how are you doing on the whole thing? Doing fair? I was telling the youth group the other week that it is not that by being a follower of Jesus, we become suddenly wise and have it all figured out. We are not sinless, but the longer you go, you should sin less. I think that's good. I'm not a perfect husband. I think I've gotten a few things figured out to where I sin less, but guaranteed my wife would not say that I'm sinless. We try. But even when somebody's trying, it's not easy to be the easer. And so we strive after that. But that's the first one. Be a good easer. It can be a delightful role, and God wired us to need one another and to work out that equality within a structured community environment. We all play that role in various jobs and various times. The second thing is the idea of being not a homemaker, because when we say homemaker, we think baking, cleaning, doing all the home work, all the work at home. That's all important, but a good mom finds joy in being the maker of the home. A man can build a house. A man can get a job to pay for a house. But in the end, it's still just a house. It is mom who makes the house a home, because she has a way of affecting the entire environment of the house with a mind toward, what are we trying to do here? How do we show hospitality? What do people feel when they walk into our front door? And so she brings order out of chaos. She brings beauty out of the mundane. She brings a sense of aroma and smell that creates an environment in the house that makes it a home. And it very much reflects her personality, her ideas of what is right and what is not right. And so her role in being the one who creates a home extends to why, when we talk about hospitality, we men go, hospitality sounds like women's work to me. And again, we're broken. if that communicates a sense that we think that's less important, we're wrong, because that is critically important. Our home would not be home, it would only be a house if it was left to us. And it might be well decorated, but probably not. It might have a sense of order, but it would be functional, not beautiful. We might cook the meat and leave the rest of the meal to whatever, because we don't have that innate sense of what is the emotional environment. Remember the idea of what your eye sees reflects your heart that Jesus was talking about? And if your eye is full of darkness, then how far does that darkness go into your soul? A woman's sense of beauty and decoration is a critically important part of who she is, and is not just for the family. It affects the congregation. It affects the community. It affects so much around her. And when my wife, Abby, is the live stream working right now? I forgot to walk out. My wife says, wear something springy and cheerful this morning. And I forgot to check with her as to whether this is what she had in mind. I just needed to get out, and I did. But I will always defer to her in regard to my style, because she is the one who manages how we as a family present ourselves. And if I don't embarrass her, I'm good. If I embarrass me, I don't care, because it's not my area of concern. And so, this whole area of what a godly woman brings to her home extends to what she brings to the entire community, what she brings to the church. And the idea of beauty, and I have so many stylish, beautiful women of so many ages within our congregation. We are a very blessed congregation of women who have a beautiful sense of innate style. And that is a blessing for the whole congregation. And finally, the area then, not just of making the environment, but making an environment that is suitable for nurturing. And I don't even have to belabor this point, because it is the one thing that every woman that I asked about the areas of responsibility agree that nurturing is an especially important role to women generally. That doesn't mean that your mom was particularly talented at it. It's not my point. None of us measure up to the ideal, but the way God made women differently, we agree, means that men can educate children. But a woman's touch is important for nurturing those children. And if a woman is happy, this idea of being an assistant, an essential helper, a maker of the home, a nurturer of all the relationships that she encounters, just kind of flow naturally out of them. But when they're not happy, when things are not right, we again often think that it's about the chaos, it's about the stress, it's about the schedule, it's about these things that we become victims to, and we fail to pause long enough to seek first the kingdom. Do you remember? I stopped paying attention a while ago because I thought it was ridiculous. Do you remember the idea of the she shack? That was kind of popular for a while, and it was the idea, here's my guy interpretation, if you had a she shack, if you still have a she shack, and you think it's absolutely wonderful, come beat me up later. I thought it was ridiculous. Because what it meant was, she's got the whole house to make her space, and the husband goes, her space. Decorate however you want. And then she still needs a shed to escape to, and she wants to doll that all up, and there was this whole indulgence attitude that I'm just not being made to feel good in my home, and so I'm going to have my space to do my things and invite my friends and drink my wine and get away from all of you horrible people that make my life so miserable. Again, if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm sorry, but the whole notion that a woman should have a separate space to make hers never made any sense to me. The thing is, it became a separate effort to seek her own sanctuary. And the title of this lesson has been titled, A Mother's Sanctuary. As though there was a separate space set up for moms to be able to unwind and declutter their lives and their stress level. And they could just take a breath and be who God created them to be. It doesn't work that way. You see, I never intended for there to be a possessive space, a sanctuary set up just for mom. This is a contraction. A mother is sanctuary to other people. That when she seeks first the kingdom, she becomes a sanctuary for others. And her home becomes a sanctuary for her children, for her husband, for herself, and for every guest who comes through their doors. That she is the sanctuary. And if mama is happy, everybody is blessed. And so this idea of seeking first the kingdom, seeking first a relationship with God, seeking first faith in Jesus becomes absolutely a part of what it means to be a good mom. And that's where we have to begin. Not that she creates a sanctuary, but she becomes a sanctuary naturally as the outflow of who God made her to be. And each mom is going to look differently, but each congregation is blessed by the collection of moms who say, this is our congregation. And when we do a potluck, it is a sanctuary for everybody who comes, and there's always enough. And when we decorate the building, it is not with the idea that God has to be impressed with our decorations. It is with the idea that when somebody new walks through our door, they walk through and they go, this is nice. I like this. I feel like I'm in a safe place to be who God created me to be. And that a woman could come into this place and go, I like these women. I like the feeling of this space. It's not about doing it the right way, as though God's up in heaven going, oh, wow, those banners, way too much color. I like bland. Personally, I love the banners. My wife picked them out. Sarah helped to get them hung. I think they're great. I love the color. But it's not about making an environment for the pastor. We need to decorate the church for the pastor to feel good. That is not the issue at all. The issue is, who are we as the people of God? Who are we as the congregation who follows Jesus? And who are we as men who follow Christ? And women who follow Christ? And how do we celebrate the fact that though we are different, we together are necessary to portray and carry forward the image of God in Milford? That's what being mom is about on Mother's Day. And so the main point that I want to get across is that we honor mothers for their God-given ability to be, to create, and to influence warm, inviting, and emotionally safe spaces where people can develop their own ability to seek first the kingdom and reflect God's image. And every woman who is part of that effort is a blessing not only to their families, but to the congregation, to the community, and everyone around them. And if you don't hear somebody say it often enough, you deserve to be celebrated as a godly woman who has been a mother and who has contributed to the communities around her. It is a critically important role, and we bless you for that role, not just on Mother's Day, but we ought to be doing it every day of our lives. This is the calling of what it means to be men and women who follow Jesus. The whole idea of this song, softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, come home. And it's a story, it is a song reflecting the story of the prodigal son. And the father is there waiting, inviting, calling, come home, come home. But we guys know that if it comes to softly and tenderly calling a child, an errant child, to come home, no, that is not a guy quality. Guys go, get your butt home now. Women, softly, tenderly, graciously call the errant child to come home. And so even in this old hymn, there is a sense that, no, it takes both